All right, welcome back to On Texas Football, special live edition of On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel, recapping the Steve Sarkisian weekly press conference. Player availability on the 40 acres, coming off of a 16-13 overtime win over Kentucky, looking ahead to Saturday's game against Mississippi State. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you got questions, we'll get to them. Super chats, obviously, as always, jump to the front of the line. CJ, your quick thoughts on what we heard today, which was, fan base has been wanting accountability from Sark. Today is about as accountable as maybe we've heard Sark since he got the job.
Yeah, a lot of reflection and looking in the mirror from Sark. He was very blunt this morning, talking with us, saying basically everything that went wrong in Lexington is a result of my doing, right? I'm the play caller. I'm the guy that gets the quarterbacks ready to go. I have to make sure that my team is situationally aware, especially towards the back end of games. I've got to be better. And to hear that, Jeff, while it's a step in the right direction for what we hope to be a continuation of the 2-game win streak Texas is on currently, but hey, there's a lot yet to be known about what this team will look like whenever they travel this weekend to Starkville.
Yeah, just a couple of injury notes. So Sark said today that C.J. Baxter is making progress. They're hopeful to have him back against Mississippi State. And C.J., it doesn't sound like Cole Hudson is going to be available because Sark talked about this being a big week where they can maybe get Connor Robertson and Nick Brooks some more work together, working side by side. So I'm not overly optimistic that either one of those guys will be back on Saturday.
Yeah, I did pick up on that as well. He didn't originally say that Cole Hudson will be out, but he said, look, this weekend is a great opportunity for Robertson and Brooks to get work. And reading between the lines there, well, that tells me, excuse the wind, I'm sorry, but that tells me that it's going to be another week of Connor Robertson snapping footballs Arch Manning.
No doubt. All right, we got a couple of cuts from Sark's press conference today. Thank you to producer Matthew for putting these together. Let's get to the first one, CJ, and I think this one has probably drawn the most conversation over at ontexasfootball.com. Sark was asked point blank, has he thought about giving up play calling? Is that something he's looking at? This was his response.
I got hired. I was a really good offensive coordinator. So I believe in what we're able to do. Every year we have to continually evolve, and there's years we're going to be better on offense than we are on defense. There's going to be years we're better on defense than we are on offense, but it's like if I was the best outside sales guy and then I had a startup company, surely I'm going to go to the sales meetings if I'm trying to sell something, right? And so if that's one of your strengths, I'm always going to tap into the strength that I have. And I think, being a play caller on offense is one of my strengths. Some may disagree. That's okay.
So at the beginning of that cut, it was Sark basically saying, look, he got the job because of his ability to call plays. And CJ, look, if there is an answer, if Sark is going to give it up, it's not going to be during the season. It's going to be something that doesn't get addressed until after the season is over. But I've got to think if there was somebody Sark trusted enough to handle in-game play calling on this staff, I think he would have already done it. And that's not a knock on anybody on the staff. I just think it's everybody just needs to wrap their head around it. It's going to take a lot for Sark to give that up.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's, it plays to the strength, I don't want to call it ego or arrogance, but, when you're a play caller, you're prideful in the fact that this is why you are where you are in your career. And for Sarkisian saying, hey, I'm at Texas because of my ability to scheme, to play call, to get guys open, I understand it. And I get where he's coming from. It has been a rocky road. The conversation is now at its loudest it's been with Sarkisian in his play calling since he arrived here in Austin. But kind of go back to personnel over play call for me. Texas with its offensive line and its current state, and we'll talk about it. How much can you really do with this play calling? And we'll talk about that as well, Jeff, because as a play caller, you have to continually evolve with what you do and how you go about games. For Steve Sarkisian, what I'm looking forward to this weekend is, can you go back to what you did against Oklahoma, kind of throw your ego aside and say, look, it's not working the way I want it to work, but it's working the way it has to work for Texas to put points on the board. They did that against Oklahoma. They did not do that against Kentucky.
We'll get to that in just a minute. I like where you're going with that, CJ, but before we do that, because I think this quote dovetails into it, you mentioned the offensive line. Sark talked about the offensive line. So here's Sark talking about after it kind of felt like that group reverted back to what we saw against Florida, where it just felt like not a whole lot offensively was working. It starts up front, and these are Sark's thoughts on Monday about the offensive line.
Made a shift going into the OU game to play Nick at left guard, and with the mindset of, man, he's going to feel really good between Trevor and Cole. I don't think it's ideal when you lose your starting center in the middle of a week, and to take nothing away from Connor, but there's a little bit of a safety net and a safety blanket for Nick there. And so I think them now having this whole week to work together will be helpful. And again, I think we need to understand something as an offensive line and as an offense in general. When you expose yourself to issues, and if you're not blocking movement very well, when a team and you go study a team to get ready to play for, and they're not a big movement operation, when you come into the next game, they're going to do some things that have caused you issues in the past. And I didn't think we responded very well to that against Kentucky. And credit to Kentucky. They have some really good interior defensive linemen. That number 60 is a player. They moved more than maybe our guys were anticipating. And so the reactions to that movement and how we picked it up was not ideal. And so we have to plan better for them to get them prepared for what might be, not just what's always on tape. And again, that's on me to get that done from an offensive perspective.
Yeah, it's not an ideal situation, CJ. And look, offensive line play is an issue for this team. But one thing Sark talked about, and look, he's not going to give away the Mississippi State game plan on a Monday. But I did like what he said, and I was encouraged by what he said when he talked about, hey, philosophically, do you have to change? And he said, yeah, that is something they have to look at. If you're going to play this style of play, where I think he's admitted, look, it's going to have to be about field position and defense and trusting your special teams. You've got to put the offense in advantageous situations to where they can convert third downs, move the chains. It's going to be a low possession game, probably a lower number of plays. You can't afford to waste plays just taking shots. And I think now it's a test, CJ. We've all talked about it here on the channel. It's a test of, call it patience, call it stubbornness, whatever. Is Sark willing to just it's not even about admitting defeat, just admitting, look, there's the offense you want, and then there's the offense that you need to have in order to survive. Those are not the same things, but if this season is going to get salvaged and it's going to be anywhere close to what you thought it would be, and you're going to have a chance to get to Atlanta, that's the offense you got to be right now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, for Sark, you're in between a rock and a hard place, right? Because the strength of your quarterback is the deep shot. Unfortunately, the biggest weakness of your offensive line is providing time for the deep shot. And on top of that, you got to find that middle ground. And going back to what you talked about, Jeff, I know that Sark says he's got to evolve. He's got to be better. He's got to find ways to make the offense work, given the strengths and the weaknesses of the team. Something I enjoyed hearing because, hey, at least he's aware that there are some glaring weaknesses. By week 7, I think we are all aware of what glaring weaknesses we have. There's about 5 of them that weigh 300 pounds a pop right now. So my thing for Sark is, how do you find that common ground, especially when you can't run the football effectively, at least not very consistently? Is it swing passes? Is it the short routes? Is it just essentially saying, hey, Arch, we're going to have to run you 10 to 15 times a game because that's the only way that we can get effective ground game going? That's what I want to see, and we'll get an idea of that on Saturday. I did kind of chuckle at the fact that Sark did give Kentucky, they're a tip of the cap there. So they got some guys on that defensive line. Number 60, that's David Gusta. He transferred in from Washington State. Texas had a chance to bring him in for an unofficial. They passed on him. He ended up in Kentucky. Funny how that works. Texas ended up, obviously, with a pretty good defensive line hole in the portal anyways. But it's funny how things kind of come full circle back again for you.
Yeah, you mentioned Arch, CJ. Let's go ahead and get to it. Sark was asked, hey, he was asked after the game if he thought about making a quarterback change. He said no, he didn't think about it during the game. And Sark was asked basically, hey, what would it take for you to get to that point? Basically going back to last year when he benched Quinn Ewers against Georgia, what would it take to get to that point with Arch this year? This is Sark's response. So this was an interesting response from Sark.
I felt like his demeanor in both games, when I was talking to him, he was seeing things well. His communication was good with Coach Milwee. what we were trying to do. I think there were some throws in there that gave me some like, okay, the conversion to DeAndre on third down was a heck of a throw. The ball to Emmett Mosby over the middle for an explosive play was a heck of a throw. So there were plays in there that, man, I'm like, okay, we can find his rhythm back. I felt like against Georgia with Quinn last year, we were a little bit overwhelmed as an offense in general. He had gotten hit with a pretty good sack fumble on a corner blitz that he didn't see coming. So at that point, I don't know if he was seeing great. And so sometimes taking a step back when you're not seeing things really well, that's a way to go. I didn't feel like there was anything happening Saturday night that Arch wasn't seeing. He was throwing the ball to the right people that were open. We just missed a couple, and so sometimes that's human nature, that hey, we're humans. We're going to make some physical errors, and he had a couple physical errors.
Yeah, that's interesting, CJ. I know everybody likes to, when the quarterback struggles, everybody likes to go back to that Sam Darnold, mic'd up clip from Monday Night Football. I think it was his rookie year, second year in the league, where he said, "I'm seeing ghosts, bro," and you wonder if a quarterback's seeing ghosts. That makes me feel better that at least Arch is, from Sark's standpoint and what he was hearing from Arch, he's processing. It's just a matter of making the throw or not. And CJ, you and I talked about this in between breaks, between Sark's availability and the players coming up. And I'm trying to find answers. I'm like everybody. I'm trying to find answers and figure, okay, what is wrong with the offense? Where is the crux of the issue? And I'm coming around to the fact that maybe Sark, from a game planning standpoint, if that initial plan or even like the fallback plan, when you have to deviate from it, if those don't work, and it's not an easy thing to do, if he doesn't have any adjustments or answers at a certain point, does he, whether he realizes it or not, maybe subconsciously does he reflect some sort of anxiety or anxiousness or discomfort? And without some veteran presences on offense to steady you through that, does that bleed over into the offense and cause some time where maybe you start pressing or you're thinking too much or you get anxious or whatever the case is? CJ, I'm just trying to find some answers, and I'm drifting toward that maybe just after the initial plan, if it doesn't go well, maybe Sark, whether he realizes it or not, is just that lack of confidence or panic is maybe rubbing off on the offense a little bit.
Yeah, and again, it's been a bit of a trickle-down effect, I have to imagine. To your point, it starts with your head coach, goes to your quarterback, and then the rest of the offense kind of sits around saying, well, we're not really doing what we're supposed to do. How do we improve that? And then you start pressing, and then you hold on a little bit too much on a block, or you get too anxious on a false start, and you try to jump the snap count just a little bit too much, and it builds, and it just puts you further and further behind the 8 ball. I kind of went the route of asking Arch. I said, hey, man, like we talked in June, talking about the Manning Passing Academy. You said the number one thing that you're looking forward to now as the starting quarterback at Texas is going out there having fun with the guys that you've been with for 3 years, playing the game that you love. Do you feel like you're still having fun? He said, yeah. I was like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm sold on that answer, but who are those guys that help ensure that you're in that mind space to have fun and play loose and play free? Essentially what got you to this point today. And he said, yeah, Michael Taff on defense. CJ Baxter, been out since basically game 1. Trey Wisner just returned for the first time, or second week out of about 7. And those are my guys. Okay, well that tells me, Jeff, that to your point, that offensive leadership, the guys that can sit there and pick you up and pat you on the back when you've had a bad day and say, hey, you got the next one. I don't know if they're there right now. And playing 5 straight games away from home, you need those guys. Texas has another opportunity this Saturday to maybe see if somebody steps up and takes that role. But right now, I worry if they have them at all.
This is where you miss a Jake Majors. You miss a Gunnar Helm. Even though he was extremely talented, you miss a guy like Kelvin Banks, a guy like Hayden Connor, guys that had been there from the jump with Sark. They'd seen a lot. They'd experienced a lot. And if things are going bad, they can kind of be a calming presence to you. And even Quinn, to a certain point, look, even though he did get pulled and had to sit against Georgia last year, you don't make that throw on 4th and 13. You don't execute that last year in the Peach Bowl unless you've got some grit about you. So it's a slower burn than any of us thought. And again, you start looking around for leadership on offense. CJ, like you said, most of those guys, 2 of them, Cole Hudson and CJ Baxter, are out injured. Trey Wisner didn't get a chance to have an impact on the game like I think we all would have liked to have seen him. And then, DJ Campbell, he can only do so much. He's one man. And then DeAndre Moore, the further away you get from the ball, the more reliant you are on the other pieces of the offense to help your game. There's so much of it that's out of your control. It's just a recipe for what we're seeing on offense, and it gets as bad as it did when let's see, Marcus Myers, and thanks to Marcus for hanging out in the chat, and thanks for everybody hanging out in the chat right now. When even the times where the call was good and the execution wasn't there, now the ball not getting there becomes an issue. So that's why we keep saying it's not just one thing. It's everybody took turns helping the offense stub their toe on Saturday. And that's what you got to get over. We'll get back to it here in just a second. But right now, we're going to thank our sponsor for this live edition of On Texas Football, sponsoring our Steve Sarkisian press conference reactions each and every week. And that's our friends over at Duck Camp. And Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating, from those sun protection shirts that keep you cool during the early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics. Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com. And when you do, use the promo code ONTexas25 to save some money on your purchase over at duckcamp.com. CJ, let's look around to some other aspects of this team. Actually, we'll stay with the offense really quick. Arch was asked if he's worried about losing his job. He said he's not. He's only worried about controlling what he can control. And I mean, I don't know what else he can say really other than that. Look, it's a week-to-week deal with this offense. We don't really know what we're gonna get. So hopefully at some point they get CJ Baxter back. But if not, you hope that maybe what Sark said there, and we've talked about it a little bit already, maybe that extra week of practice for Connor Robertson and Nick Brooks to get some things together helps. But any little bit, CJ, that this offense can help itself through practice or getting guys back or whatever, you'll take it right now. Just it's going to be a long week, in other words, for the fan base to wait to see what the offense looks like on Saturday.
Yeah, I think this is entering the most eager Texas has ever been as a fan base to see another game after the performance Texas put on the field offensively against Kentucky. And, it's tough because normally when you see a bad product, the number one thing you want to do is turn it off and not watch it again. But you just can't help yourself and assume that it's going to be corrected and that things will be better this weekend. So I'm falling into that trap as well. The big thing is if CJ Baxter's on the field, look, I don't think it'll matter a whole lot in the running game. Texas can't block a soul anyways. That running game for me, it's gone. It's gone. Like it just won't be better this year. It won't. There have been too many chances this year for Texas to showcase a running game and too many opportunities where it's fallen face first. But where CJ Baxter is going to help you is in pass protection. Trey Wisner gives it his all. He is a tough son of a gun when it comes to pass protection. Just at 5'10", 5'11", 195 pounds, it just doesn't bring a lot to the pass protection game. Again, that's to no fault of his own. He gives it his all. And nobody else in that running back room has necessarily given you any indication that they can be a plus in pass protection. One guy has. That's CJ Baxter at 6'2", 225, 230 pounds, Jeff. That's a big body. That's basically another tight end that you can sit in there and rely on in pass protection against a linebacker, helping chip off the edge. Texas needs everything that they can get right now in pass protection, and getting him back in the lineup is going to help just that little much.
Yeah, and one thing, and I think this goes back to, if it wasn't one thing, it was another for the offense on Saturday against Kentucky. You look at third downs, and Sark initially, when he went and looked at the tape, he thought, man, we had a lot of third and longs. You had 6 3rd and 9 pluses. You were 2 for 6 on those, but CJ, Texas was 0 for 4 on 3rd and 4 or less. When it's that bad, you can't just put it on one person. That's on your execution. That's on your play calling. It's on numerous things. I see a comment from Josie and some other people to the effect of, man, we're in year 5 and we don't know what we're going to get one week to the next with Sark's offense. I don't think that's indicative of like the trajectory of the program or the trajectory of the offense overall. It's just this year, it just hasn't clicked. And look, this offense isn't suddenly going to become elite. I think anybody that really believes that or wants that to happen, you're fooling yourself. But with this style of play that Sark wants to play, can you have the kind of offense that can win you games? Yeah, you can. Your margin for error is going to be much smaller, but you can win games, and we'll see philosophically, CJ. I think that's the one thing I was most encouraged by today that Sark or any of the players said is Sark alluding to the fact, yeah, I'm not going to give you my game plan, but you'll probably see something different against Mississippi State than what you saw against Kentucky.
Yeah, I liked hearing that as well as hearing, and this could go one of two ways, Marcus. I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later this week, but this locker room still believes. This team talked a lot about Kentucky being, quote, a culture win, end quote. That tells me that one of a few things, right? It could go the side of this team truly does still believe. This team still looks at its schedule and says, hey, we can compete and win all of these games remaining for us and achieve everything that we want to achieve this year. Or, Jeff, it goes the way of a bad marriage where you say you're together, you try all the stops, you're looking at it saying, hey, we're doing everything we can. We still love each other, right? But behind closed doors, one side is pulling the weight more than the other, and the other one can't wait to get away from that other side. That, to me, is where we're kind of teetering on. I don't know if I believe him fully, given the performance of a defense and the performance of the offense at the moment.
Yeah, and look, Ethan Burke and Anthony Hill both said to him, man, look, they still believe in this offense. They are a team. They are together. And Colin Simmons both said the same thing after the game on Saturday. But, you can't have another one like you had on Saturday and expect that to still be the case. Maybe it is, but you can't expect it to be the case. CJ, as we wrap this up, anything else that stood out to you today from either Sark or the players?
No, not a whole lot. Look, I think we covered it. Sark's not getting rid of play calling duties anytime soon. Arch still believes in them. The defense still believes in the offense. It's time for the offense to start believing in themselves. Otherwise, again, it's going to be a long afternoon on Saturday in Starkville where those cowbells are going to be out and hunting for some false starts.
I do want to end this on a positive because I really like this piece today. Ryan Niblett was talking about how he came really close to not being at Texas and entering the portal. And he said one of the things that kept him at Texas was he's noticed Sark, if a guy enters the portal, Sark doesn't fight for everybody to stay at Texas. But Niblett said he felt like Sark really fought for him to stay at Texas and really sold him on staying at Texas, and that convinced him to stay. I don't know, CJ, where this team would be right now without Ryan Niblett the last 2 weeks. So kudos to Sark for seeing value in Niblett, and kudos to Ryan for putting in the work and not just carving out a role for himself, but carving out a role that's helping this team win games.
Absolutely. That's one of the bright spots of this year is the emergence. And he should be a guy, and Texas has had many, right? A Barron Sorrell, a Jalen Ford, a guy who came up and really developed as the years went on. Christian Jones being another. Guys that stick with this program and trust the coaches, finally emerging later on in their careers and becoming a guy that Texas, quite frankly, can't play without.
All right, we'll keep talking about it on the channel. We've got the live stream tonight with CJ, Rod Babers, and Coach Shipley. We've got all kinds of content coming up throughout the week. Live streams every night, tonight, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. If you want to hear some more from Marcus Myers, who's in the chat, Marcus will be on the Thursday live stream with Rod and Coach Shipley. The next 2 nights, Tuesday and Wednesday, it's myself, CJ, and Amanda Atwell on a live stream. CJ, thanks for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our friends at Duck Camp for sponsoring it. If you're not a member, over at ontexasfootball.com, you want more news, notes, and nuggets from the press conference today, you can get those and much more. Just head over to the site, sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our coverage before, during, and after every Texas game this season. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, hook 'em.